Hey everyone, my name is Liam. I'm one of the horticulturists here at Spice Home and Garden, and today we're going to bring you the first in our series of garden centre videos. So each week we're going to look at different garden centre plants and different topics and little jobs that you should be doing at different times of the year in the garden. So as I said, my name is Liam. I'm a horticulturist. I studied horticulture for 4 years. Been working in the industry for now about 12 years between garden centres and the landscape sector. So that's just a bit of background on me. So as I said, we're going to look at garden centre plants. So this week we're going to look at the hydrangea as a group of plants. So once we've looked at them, we've got a few questions in from Instagram, and then we're going to have a look and answer those questions. So as I said, we're going to look at the hydrangeas first. So there's lots of different types of hydrangeas. There's the mop heads and the lace caps. So this week we're going to look at the mop heads. They're the most commonly grown ones in Ireland. So the hydrangeas as a family are generally regarded as extremely hardy, resistant to most diseases and quite drought tolerant. So that's why they're a great plant to grow and full of flower from sort of early summer till late autumn. One of the most common things I suppose people will ask you about hydrangea is the colour of the flower. So you can see here we've got some different, we've got a blue one, there's a reddy sort of pink one, and a white one. So the most common question is, I planted a blue one and it turned pink, or I planted a pink one and it turned blue. So basically the colour of the flower is dictated by your soil pH. So you can check your pH with just something like this. It's a simple soil testing kit. So you just put in some soil and there's a little reagent then that you pour onto it. There's a chart that will tell you whether you're basically if your soil is acid or base. Okay, so below 6 is generally regarded as acidic, and then you'll have blue, and above 6 is regarded as base or alkaline, and they'll generally turn pink. Sometimes it will turn into a sort of a pinky mauve colour. But you can change the colour of your soil, or not the colour of your soil, the colour of your flower. And you can do that with stuff like sulphate of iron. So sulphate of iron will make it more acidic, so you'll be heading back towards a blue hydrangea. And then if you want to go for pink, you add organic matter in the form of farmyard manure. So it will just break down over time. It could take a couple of years, but it'll get there, and then you'll head back towards pink. So that's really it with regard to the flower petals. I suppose the other thing then is pruning. So you can prune either in late winter or into early spring. I generally prefer to do it in early spring because I find that the old dead flower will give your plants some frost protection. And that was something that was very common this year. There was lots of little burnt leaves on hydrangeas just on the edges. Just a browning of the leaf, but it's not really to worry about. Most of them they'll nearly all be fine. It'll be inconsequential, it won't matter. So that's about it really, yeah. And then there's other feeds as well. If they're looking a little bit hungry or a bit sad, a liquid feed is a great thing to put on because that will give them a quick shot. It will bump them up. You'll see a greenness coming back into the leaf. And the ericaceous feed, this one here, it's a slow release fertilizer. It'll break down over 6 months. So it's more of a slow, long-term feed. I think that's about it, really, with the hydrangea. If there's any questions, you can send them in to us on Instagram or Facebook after the video. When I mentioned Instagram, we have an Instagram account, and we just got some questions in on it this week. So the first question is from a girl called Emma, and she has a north-based garden with lots of wind and wet ground, so she just wanted a suggestion of some plants for that. So I have just 3 plants here. The first one is an astilbe. They're all herbaceous perennials, so they'll all die back in the winter, come back in the spring. Yeah, as I said, the first one is the astilbe, which is a great little plant, very, very hardy. Back when we had like all the heavy snow a couple of years ago, these really flew through the winter. They were one of the best herbaceous plants for coming through, and will flower from midsummer right up till the first heavy frost. Then you'll start to see them go back into the ground. But again, great for wet, heavy ground, very tolerant of lots of soils. This one here is called Rebeccae, lovely big yellow daisy type flower with a black centre. Again, great plant in wet ground. Flowers again up until September. It's a really good plant. This one here is called Calta. Some people call it the marsh marigold. It's a true pond plant, so you can actually put this right at the edge of a pond if you want. Or it'd also work in the situation that Emma's talking about, because again, it's quite low grown, very, very hardy and full of flowers. There's some latent flowers on it there, hasn't come into flower yet, but will come into flower shortly. And we have one other question there from Carmel, and she's looking for suggestions for potted plants on a decking that don't need a lot of watering. So again, we have a couple of plants here. One plant that most people will know is the lavender. There's loads of different types of lavenders. This is Hidcote, it's one of the most common types. And there's another one here called Premium Magenta. It's a bigger flower, it's a more pinky flower. But again, lavenders are brilliant, flowering all summer long. Look great in a pot. Generally, if you set something around them, actually it's something we have here in front, which is the Campanula, which would also be quite drought tolerant. If you were to put your lavender into the pot and put maybe 3 of these, depending on the size of your pot, 3 of these around the edge, it really lifts up the pot and sets off the lavender. Just a nice little thing. A few more drought tolerant plants. This one's called Louisia. It's actually regarded as an alpine, but the brilliant thing about it is it tiers itself. So as it gets more mature, you will see a tiering of the flowers up along it. This is a sort of a peachy colour. It comes in lots of different colours, pinks, reds, but a brilliant plant. And most succulent plants like this will be drought tolerant. They'll all be very accepting of those sort of conditions. And the last one we're going to look at is a little olive tree. Olive, by its nature, they come from generally sort of Italy, Greece. That's the region that they originate, and by nature they will generally survive even if they only have the rain from the previous winter. That'll be enough to get them through, because they can store it within the plant. But a great plant in a pot, again, sits well with lavender, campanula, anything like that. I think that's more or less all the questions we have today, so we'll leave it there. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to send them in on Instagram, Facebook, and we will take it from there, and we'll see you next week.